Daryl's Dodge delivers a dose of deja vu and a trio of talented Super Comp speedsters. From Aerolite trailers in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. Competing in the 18-event NHRA Winston Championship is no easy task. Long months on the road, crisscrossing the continent puts a great deal of strain on both the racing team's equipment and personnel. By far, the most effective way to cope with the demands of such a schedule is to have a well-outfitted transporter, one that can serve as a team's nerve center while moving from race to race. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and this is NHRA Today. As you know, at the races, I spend a lot of my time in the pits, and I know firsthand the importance of a well-designed rig. Many are virtual race shops on wheels, carrying a complete supply of spare parts and enough machinery to perform maintenance and repairs required. Others are built for comfort, and a great deal of attention is paid to the lounge. Some transporters are even modified to include a fully equipped office that allows the businessman racer to work and play. During the next half hour, we'll show you how rigs like those are built here at Aerolite Trailers, and we'll bring you highlights from the Quaker State North Star Nationals. But first, this weather station reminds me we must find out what's hot. Last week, we showed you the new Brad Hadman-built dragster that Gwin Racing had brought to Brainerd. Well, in its first qualifying run, the car lurched skyward in a wheel stand before slamming back down and damaging the right front suspension.
The ideas that are being applied to the new car possibly will work, but you have to get the motor and the clutch and everything else working together, and that is going to take a little more than 1 or 2 runs.
Another qualifying surprise was turned in by Del Worship, who claimed his first ever #1 slot. And his performance was good enough to also capture the last slot for next month's Big Bud shootout at Indianapolis. To say the rookie was thrilled would be an understatement. And finally, as you may know, Pro Stock driver Don Beverly also owns a first-rate Busch Grand National stock car. When I saw those Hoosier tires in his pit, I thought maybe they were off of that car. Not at that width. A new tire from Hoosier for Pro Stock?
Not a question, Steve. Bob Newton, that owns Hoosier Tire, is really involved in our Busch Grand National team. He had made a Pro Stock tire and wanted us to try them. We tried them at Woodburn. They really worked well. We had planned to run them here at Brainerd this weekend, and we had a rain delay and only got 3 runs in. But the tires are really going to work on these Pro Stock cars.
And that is what's hot. The people at Aerolite Trailers' original business was van conversion, so they're very adept at appointing lounges, whether built in a trailer or in a salon-bodied truck like this one. In fact, I am checking out of that place that leaves the light on for me and moving in here. This is bigger. Last weekend at Brainerd International Raceway, though, there was little lounge time for the top fuel competitors. Here's the first of 3. Dave McClellan reports.
The top fuel field at the Quaker State North Star Nationals was paced by former Winston champion Dick LaHaye, who set his 5:06 elapsed time in the heat of the first day of qualifying, and come Sunday's eliminations, Dick moved easily to the second round, where he met up with another independent racer, Tommy Johnson Jr. At the green, the 2 cars left the line with virtually identical reaction times. But at the finish, the young man from Iowa in the near lane had edged ahead for another giant-killing victory.
That's the second race in a row that we've run. We've taken out the #1 qualifier second round, so that was awful nice to get out around the hay and get into the semis again.
Johnson's opponent in the final 4 would be the winner of the second round battle between Joe Amato and Frank Hawley. Amato, seeking his 4th win in 4 years at Brainerd, was also trying to become the first driver in history to win 4 consecutive events, and in keeping with the numbers game, Joe qualified in the 4th position. Hawley's Coors Light Special had set the quickest time of the first round, and at the green, Frank took the early lead in the near lane, but then the Valvoline Special moved to the 4 and claimed the victory with the only 4-second run of the event. That time granted the defending Winston champion lane choice over Johnson in the final 4. But as the green light flashed, TJ moved into the initial lead, but by the finish line, Amato had thundered past and into the championship round. The other side of the eliminations featured a second round battle between Texans when Kenny Bernstein faced off against the Super Shops entry of Eddie Hill. And at the green, Bernstein in the near lane took a huge lead and then held on for the victory despite Hill's quicker elapsed time. That hole shot victory by Kenny Bernstein was just another example of the class-leading reaction times by the Budweiser King, and it vaulted Kenny past Don Prudhomme and into second place in the Winston points standings. Kenny then added another 200 points to his total with a relatively easy Final Four win over 10th qualifier Corey McLenithan, whose supercharger let go just past mid-track. In the title round, Bernstein repeated his Sunday starting line sorcery, slapping a hole shot on Amato and then holding on to take the win by a slim 100th of a second. Kenny, this certainly was one of the closest races you've had in a long time.
Well, it surely was. I could feel him beside me all the way, and I was just praying that the big blue thing didn't go past me at the other end.
The victory today by Kenny Bernstein moved him into second behind Joe Amato in the Winston points chase. Prudhomme drops to third. Frank Hawley now number 4 with Laurie Johns number 5.
Stay with us. When we come back, you'll meet the man behind the company that builds these incredible race car haulers. He'll share with us some of the construction techniques that go into building one of these monster 53-footers.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Welcome back to NHRA Today outside of Minneapolis. You know, race car builders aren't the only ones concerned with lightweight materials, be it their mid-size trailer that gained Aerolite its original popularity or the behemoths they're getting into. Larry DeForest, president of Aerolite, you folks love aluminum.
Yes, we do, Steve. Our basic trailers, all of them from the small 24-footers through the 53s, are all built of aluminum extrusion and bent sheet. We start out with these floor extrusions, which are all welded together, weld the side rail on, tip the floor over onto this jig, add the rest of the shell, complete the body shell, and then add whatever required equipment there might be in the interior. When we're done, the only steel used in the trailer is the tongue and the axles.
We'll be back with more trailer science right after this week's Big Daddy Don Garlits Tech Check.
In drag racing, safety has always been the #1 concern, and one of the earliest safety devices that really was a big breakthrough was parachutes. Now, SSE has come up with some technology that's going to be a major breakthrough in parachute safety and technology. They have come up with a new pop chute. Very, very different. We have a lot of trouble with pop chutes. They wear out real quick. This chute lasts much longer. But better than this, here is a special fireproof pack that they pack the parachute into first. Then this pack is closed with this flap like that, goes into this pack. Now, we have protection for the chute while it's still in the car. But when the chute is out and the car's on fire, another problem exists. The shroud lines used to burn in two. Here we have the original small shroud line right here. They've come up with this new line. It's got a Kevlar line inside of it. The nylon outside takes all the shock of the stop, and if the fire burns that away, the Kevlar will still stop the car. Hats off to SSE for a new innovation.
That new parachute design underwent a literal trial by fire last weekend at Brainerd when the engine exploded in the Ray Bestis Pontiac on a qualifying pass. After a series of slides in his own oil, Richard Hartman successfully wrestled the car to a halt. And upon examining the rear of the car, it was apparent that the new chute performed as intended with minimal damage. Now, that was one of just many exciting funny car rides turned in at Brainerd. Here's Dave McClellan with his report.
The hottest competition at the Quaker State North Star Nationals was in the funny car ranks, courtesy of independent racer Jack Wyatt. In the first round against Ed McCulloch's Otter Pops Olds, Wyatt's engine let go just after the green, sending the Pontiac sliding on its own oil into the far wall. The Trans Am rebounded in flames across the center line and continued down track before pirouetting to a halt amid smoke and fire.
I pulled the throttle back, I thought I did anyway, and mainly was just trying to get the car stopped, you know, fire bottles on, because the minute I hit the first wall, it was on fire, and I was trying to get all my safety stuff done.
Jack's actions prevented serious injuries, but the car was severely damaged. McCulloch's victory moved him to round 2, where he defeated another Midwest racer, Gary Bolger. The Aces' opponent in the Final Four would be the winner of the second-round battle between Mike Dunn's Snickers Daytona and the In-N-Out Burger Trans Am of Mark Oswald. Mike knew he needed a win to stay in contention for the Winston Points Championship. But as the cars made their way down track, it was Oswald in the near lane taking the victory with the quickest time of the event. That performance may have had a great deal of influence on the outcome of the Final Four, because as the lights flashed, McCulloch in the far lane tried to cut too fine a reaction time and fouled, giving Oswald a free pass into the championship encounter. The other side of the ladder featured a second-round wrangle between Jim White and Del Worsham. White's Hawaiian Punch Daytona had struggled all week, and at the green, Worsham's Cutlass in the near lane moved into a lead that grew larger as the cars made their way down the quarter mile. By punching out Jim White, Del Worsham advanced to the Final Four, where his opponent would be the Winston champion John Force. And the rookie held the all-important lane choice over the veteran by nearly 1/10 of a second. In a strange race, Worsham lost traction almost immediately and smoked the tires, while in the other lane, Force's Castrol Cutlass experienced mechanical problems, but still managed to limp across the finish line to take a lucky victory. In the final, Oswald held lane choice and took the near side. And at the start, Mark opened up an early advantage. But just as the cars entered the traps, Force edged past to win by a scant 7/1000ths of a second.
We're excited, but let me tell you, it was a whole bunch of In-N-Out Burger going into them cones. I also want to say to my teammate, Gary Ormsby, let's get back out here and take the load off us, huh, bud?
John Force has got the lead in the Winston Point standing. Mike Dunn remains second. Jim White in third. Ed McCulloch fourth. And Mark Oswald, number 5.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
There's been a lot of conjecture recently about the proposed building of a major drag racing plant in the state of Michigan involving a real power in worldwide motorsports. Brian Tracy, Vice President of NHRA, what are the facts?
Facts are that Roger Penske's operation at Michigan International Speedway are looking at the construction of a first-class drag racing facility, if all goes well, to be completed by next year's season. Again, it's in the feasibility study stages. They're taking a look at the numbers, and if it all works out well, we certainly want to be in that market.
Welcome back to NHRA Today. Larry DeForest is a longtime superstock and soon-to-be comp eliminator racer, and as we told you earlier, is the boss man here at Aerolite Trailers in Minnesota. And Larry, over here, that is your biggest project to date.
Yes, it is, Steve. It's the largest trailer allowed by law. It's 53 foot long and 13 foot 6 inches tall. It's built to haul 2 race cars up top and a pit car in the bottom. It has a complete shop area in the middle and a 18-foot living quarters lounge area in the nose.
It must be a big help to be a racer yourself. You know what the customer needs.
Yes, it is, Steve. It really helps to know, even though when we're building a trailer this large, we really try to put a lot into it, and it really helps to be able to fit everything together and make a good, usable trailer at the track.
Now, this particular rig is headed for the Chaperone brothers, West Coast comp racers. They, along with Larry, were part of a huge contingent of Sportsman racers last weekend at Brainerd. Here is Bob Fry's report.
The Quaker State North Star Nationals featured a varied cast of characters in the Super Comp class. When Canadian Jamie Fiesel is not racing cars down the quarter mile, he's chasing hockey pucks down the ice for a professional hockey team in Schweinfurt, Germany. And that makes for a pretty busy schedule combining the two sports.
I leave September 15th this year, and I usually get back around the first week of April. So it doesn't leave me much time to get the car ready to get things going. I leave that to my crew. I come back and say, hope the car's ready.
Another driver who, during the winter, goes on ice for fun and profit is Dave Harlander. Now, Dave, a runner-up in the 1986 North Star Nationals, takes to the frozen lakes of Minnesota, where he races a snowmobile in the Hardwater Challenge. He's the 1990 world champion in the open fuel category. Harlander has actually gone faster on ice than on asphalt, and that makes for a few adjustments between the two motorsports.
In the race car and stuff, you've got traction where you can adjust the tires and that kind of thing, where on ice, whatever the ice is there, if it's a warm day, the ice is soft. You can't change the amount of picks you have in the track.
When Scott Cusey works on his dragster, it better not break. That's because it might be a little embarrassing for him. You see, Scott is host for a TV show on how to fix your car called Car Care Seminar.
Basically, I'm the on-show host, okay, that I have a very good technical background. I have a degree in auto mechanics. And of course, as you know, I do quite a bit in drag racing.
Cusey has been racing since 1976. Splitting time between a TV career and racing hasn't been easy.
It's pretty even split. And then you got the other third of my life, which I like to try to spend some time with my wife and my family. And actually, between those 3/3, it doesn't give you a lot of time to sleep.
All three of these drivers were eliminated by the third round of Super Comp when Scott Cusey was taken out by eventual winner Mike Ferderer, who picked up his first win since his switch from Super Gas.
Here I'm driving basically blind as far as knowing what they're going to do, if they're going to drop me or how they run or, you know, anything. And so it's basically you just drive by the seat of your pants, and luckily today I put the right pair of pants on.
The Super Gas final matched the 72 Challenger of Paul Pittman in the near lane against the 81 Camaro of Todd Wiley. Pittman went on to defeat Wiley and pick up his first Oscar.
We've never won past the first round in the last year and a half that we put this car together. So, yeah, it's our first win, period, of any win, so we're pleased.
Now here are the rest of the winners from the North Star Nationals. For NHRA Today, I'm Bob Fry.
And of course, in-depth coverage of all the Brainerd activity will be found in National Dragster, a magazine you get only by being a member of NHRA.
Get a close-up view of the...
Welcome back to NHRA Today. Snooping around in this 53-footer, I found this blueprint, and it showed me a couple of interesting design features. Let me share them with you. First of all, voila, a hidden engine stand that folds away flush when not in use. Something else that folds away flush when not in use are the exterior lights. You see they're even with the side of the trailer right now. Well, after dark, the push of a button pneumatically, they flop out so the crew can see what they're doing. To shed a little light on the Pro Stock competition this past weekend, here's Dave McClellan's final report.
One Pro Stock driver that absolutely loves to come to Minnesota is Bruce Allen, because in 3 of the last 4 years, his Rare and Morrison Chevy Beretta has left Brainerd International Raceway the champion of the Quaker State North Star Nationals. Bruce moved easily into the second round, where he met up with the Oldsmobile of former national record holder Mark Powick. At the green, both drivers left as one, but as they worked their way through their 5-speed transmissions, it was the Chevy Beretta in the near lane pulling out the victory. Bruce's Final Four opponent would be the winner of the latest tangle between teammates Warren Johnson and Scott Jeffreyon. WJ had qualified his AC Delco Cutlass in the #1 position, and at the green, he cut the better reaction time in the near lane, but then fate struck. First, Johnson's Cutlass slowed. Then moments later, Jeffreyon faltered. But by then, Scott was too far ahead for the boss to make up the distance. The outcome left many people puzzled.
The car was basically all over the racetrack. I mean, and then the thing didn't go into 4th gear, so I just clicked it off, and my foot wasn't on the brake pedal, if that's what you're asking. We're out here to, you know, win races, and that was agreed upon before I came into this camp.
The Final Four saw more frustration for Jeffreyon as he left the line 0.03 of a second too soon, granting Allen's Super Shop Chevy a free spot in the championship round for the 3rd year in a row. Bruce's opponent in the Final Four would be either the Castrol Oldsmobile of Larry Morgan or the Dodge Daytona of Winston champion Darrell Alderman. The Mopar machine had qualified second, 1 place ahead of Morgan, and as the cars left the line, the Dodge in the near lane seized the lead and maintained it throughout the entire quarter mile. Darrell held a sizable performance advantage going into the final, and Bruce knew a quick reaction time was vital to his chances. As the lights flashed, he responded with a near-perfect leave. But then the car slowed with problems, and Darrell Alderman flashed across the finish line for his 8th win of the year.
We were very fortunate. WJ he's been dominating here the last 4 or 5 races. He's got a performance advantage on us, and we're looking forward to getting to the super tracks where there's a lot of bites, so the little Dodge can start ETing again.
Well, the little Dodge has got a big lead in the Winston points standings. Second is Warren Johnson. Third, his team car, Scott Jeffreyon. Fourth is Bob Glidden and Larry Morgan, #5.
We're not the only ones visiting Aerolite today. Some of Larry's customers have stopped by en route to Indianapolis. which is, of course, where we'll be next Sunday with a preview of the U.S. Nationals. For all of us here at NHRA Today, see you then on TNN.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the special offer. NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.